Oh boy, what hasn't been said about this? Kane and Lynch has mostly been recognized by its sequel, which critically was torn to shreds. And years before Gamergate was even a thing, Kane and Lynch was also the subject of corrupt journalism, as Jeff Gerstmann of GameSpot was fired for giving the game a 6 out of 10 in his review. Yeah, see, the website itself was decked out in the game's advertisements at the time, and after the review, the publishers of the game threatened to pull ad revenue over his scathing review.
Some really neat ideas are buried deep in there, but you're gonna have to do a whole lot of digging, more than you'll probably want to do in order to find them.
Thus ending Jeff's time at the company and founding Giant Bomb shortly after. So, with these two giant events looming over the review, surely that means good things from here on out, right? Jokes aside, the only reason I wanted to take a look at this was, I noticed that not a lot of people talk about the first game, but instead talk more about the second. Even looking at the first page of YouTube results, you can clearly see that more videos are about the second game than the first. Which, having never played the first one before, made my curiosity grow that much more. So with that, yeah, let's take a look at it. Can't be that much worse, right?
Dear Jenny, I've been trying to write you this letter for 14 years. Today is my last chance.
So the game follows, as you would imagine, Adam Kane Marcus, a former mercenary and member of a group called the Seven, as he is now on his way to death row, writing a final note to his daughter. Here, he meets James Seth Lynch, who, with the help of unknown attackers, break him out of police custody. After miraculously escaping the cops, Kane figures out that his saviors are his old pals the Seven.
You betrayed us, Kane. You left us behind and you ran with it all.
The fuck I did.
They believe he's stolen their money, and as such are holding his family hostage, and now he and Lynch have to get their money back within a couple of weeks, or Kane and his family will die, blah blah blah. Basic standard action movie plot, nothing too special, but what about everything else? Well, for 2007, the graphics don't look too bad, actually. Character models are fine, environments and textures are clean-ish. The game even has destructible cover and advanced lighting, both of which I imagine were fairly difficult to achieve for the time. Like, look at this shit here. The shadow work here on Kane is something you'd see out of more of a game released in this day and age, not out of 2007. Again, it may not mean much, but that's really impressive for the time, at least to me. Like, seriously, look at that shit. Moving on to the gameplay, however, and it's pretty much your basic standard third-person controls, but a lot clunkier. There's this weird cover system that they added to where you have to, like, awkwardly rub up against something in order to actually take cover behind it, and that's if you're lucky. Sometimes, depending on the wall or the object that you're trying to hide behind, it may or may not even work. Even this right here, your AI teammates can take cover behind this short little wall, but Kane can't for whatever godforsaken reason. Which, in hindsight, can be pretty frustrating when you have a whole bunch of bullets grazing your balding fucking head every nanosecond. I know the shit's not exactly Gears of War or Uncharted, but come on, there had to have been a better way to make it work. That's a point I'll give to the sequel, at least. At least it improved on the cover system a bit more. Although it still didn't help it much. Now, I know the game has a heavy basis on cover-to-cover gameplay, but when the main feature of the game is constantly fighting you as to what you can and can't do with it, sometimes you just have to try something different. So, after a while, I tried resorting to more of a run-and-gun approach. But, as you'd come to expect already, even running is just as ineffective as the cover system. Kane already moves slow enough as is, but the game has, as they call it, a short sprint button. But judging how fast you actually move and with what little stamina you have, I wouldn't even call it that. Look how fast this motherfucker runs out of breath. Not even 5 seconds. I'm not sure about you, but to me it doesn't look or feel much faster than his lackadaisy-ass jog before he started sprinting. So not only is the cover system shit, but the sprint button is useless too. Great. All this, in turn with the gunplay, makes things that much more frustrating. There's not a whole lot to choose from with there being only 13 or 14 weapons in the whole game, and if that weren't bad enough, it's almost as if they're impossible to differentiate from one another. It's like they have the same lacking range, the same nearly uncontrollable recoil, the same worthless pea shooter damage, etc. You also can't really choose what you want. You either pick up weapons off the ground or swap them with Lynch and your teammates using this weird little inventory system, which is pretty nifty in concept, sure, but there's actually less of a reason for you to use the inventory system when your teammates just hand you ammo instead, so that also might as well be pointless. Oh, and speaking of Lynch and the teammates, shit, where do I begin? The game also has the system to where you can give Lynch and eventually Thappa, Riffic, and Shelly a small series of commands during combat. Simple shit like regroup, defend, and attack. Thing is, it works about as well as you would expect it to. It doesn't. For example, check how long it takes for all 4 of them to try and kill a sniper on an overpass on the Tokyo streets level. Besides the stopwatch, all of what you just saw in that first bit was completely unedited. As you saw, it took 15.17 seconds for them to get rid of the sniper. Unfucking believable. It took until I spammed the command button for them to finally listen to me. Beforehand, they didn't do shit. All anger aside though, it shouldn't take them that long to do something like that, and it shouldn't take me endlessly mashing the button for them to follow my orders. And you want to know the worst part? Not only do your teammates seemingly take forever to actually kill your target, but sometimes if that target is someone that's closer, your guys will just run out up to the targeted enemy just to kill him, regardless of whatever the fuck is going on around them. See, you think that they would just stay in cover and shoot at them from there? But no, they just run out and die in the process of just trying to kill one fucker, forcing you to put your own life at risk and picking their stupid asses back up. So, the question now is there anything actually good about Kane and Lynch? Well, kinda. It's hard to explain, but the game does, or rather tries to do, a few things that I really appreciate. Like, for instance, the locations that you visit on your journey are somewhat unique in a way. In one level, you go from rappelling down a building, breaking into that building, fighting your way down to escape the building, leaving the building to fight cops in the open city streets, and escaping into a van that's parked in a bus depot, just so you can go straight to fucking Cuba right after. Who does that? It may not mean much to you, but I like it when a game introduces different locales. Even if, in this case for Kane and Lynch, it just means fighting in the streets of California, to fighting in the streets of Tokyo, to fighting in the jungles and streets of Cuba. All that for some reason didn't bother me as much, because in between all of that, other gunfights involve ending up in a spillway after crashing a getaway van, rappelling down a building just so you can fight to the bottom of the building as mentioned previously, and breaking into a prison in the middle of nowhere by driving a fucking construction truck through the goddamn building. All of that just breaks the monotony, if only for just a few seconds, just to keep things somewhat interesting. And honestly, I kinda liked it. And oddly enough, our main duo were somewhat interesting as well. Granted, they have some things brought up about them which, even after the sequel, are still not explained. I still feel like they have the makings of interesting characters. Although with the main duo being the most well-written out of the bunch, and obviously the main focus for the writing in general, it still doesn't excuse them from any problems, as you're about to hear. Kane being both a former mercenary and a father with regrets is a good enough start for a plot point, I feel. It might be very generic, but I feel like it's a good enough start to provide some sort of conflict to make things interesting, but we never really see anything about his past or how things got to this point in his life. We're just told that his family resents him and the work that he does, and that's it. Anything else that you could possibly make out about his past, about his family, about his involvement with the Seven, is through little flashbacks that I guess he has whenever you get downed in gameplay. Which in turn makes his past more muddled and confusing to follow, as most of these lines anyway just consist of, "Wow, Kane, you're an asshole, you fucked up," without necessarily explaining as to what he did and how he fucked up. It makes things a lot more complicated, boring, and uninteresting when you have to tell and not show. Lynch, being mysterious and also a pawn for the Seven, is also another good plot point. Couple that with him suffering with schizophrenia and trying his best to control and hide it, and there you have even better conflict. They also show early on that there are clearly two sides to him. One minute he kills hostages without remorse, and then he starts outright freaking out about it the next.
How many did I kill?
More than you want to know.
Damn it! I black out sometimes, I get violent, and it's so fucking horrible afterwards.
But, as you would expect, this only happens once. One of the few interesting things that happens in the whole game, never brought up again. But there's also a plot point later on about Lynch allegedly killing his wife. Now that's interesting, but they bring it up about 2 or 3 times because Shelley talks about it.
Who made you the boss, wife killer?
And that's it. It's really disappointing that even with all this focus on them, that they still don't have proper character development. In closing, honestly, it's just a shame. This had way more going for it than 2. It's even slightly better than 2 in my opinion. The duo are well cast, the locales you fight in are really cool, the music is even decent, you've been hearing it the whole time. But it's all bogged down by a boring, non-existent story and clunky gameplay. The idea of a father with nothing to lose teaming up with a mysterious man with psychotic tendencies who have to begrudgingly unite has great potential for a good character-driven story, but they mention things about these characters and drop them shortly thereafter. No plot point has build-up, it just sort of happens and that's it. It's really frustrating because this could have been so much better than it actually was. IO Interactive had 2 chances and fucked up both of them, and I'm really confused as to how. They made Freedom Fighters and the Hitman franchise. It's not like they're strangers to making good games, you know? And it's not like they didn't care about the duo either, with how many cameos they've had over time and with how much money went into advertising for both games. Clearly the studio is passionate about everything that they make, even Kane and Lynch, but how it doesn't reflect that in the series will forever be a mystery to me. So, would I recommend Kane and Lynch Dead Men? Only over 2, but overall, no. If I had a gun to my head and I absolutely had to rate it, I would probably go right alongside Gerstmeister and give it a 6 out of 10. Hopefully, if there ever is another entry in the series, that the 3rd time is the charm and they finally get things right. I mean, with how long IO Interactive has been in the business, and how, as of recently, they've been having money troubles, I want to see them succeed, not get run down in a ditch.
I'm telling you, it's gonna be sweet. Play the other 3.
How the fuck do you get the time? I'm always too busy for that shit.
Never too busy to steal a car and mug somebody.
Stealing cars? Isn't that a bit sissy?
You call me a sissy? You just wait till somebody makes a game out of me. Then we'll see who's a sissy.